It seems we are having some technical difficulties with regard to my co-host, but we're going to begin.
Okay.
So welcome, everybody. I know you can hear all of this talk anyway, but welcome to the AI ML Data Science track of DataCon LA 2021. My name is Ron Lee. I am the host for this session. And shortly, there we go. We're now joined by Mrinjoy Das, who's our co-host. We will be monitoring the chat and the Q&A. So if you have any questions during the session, you can enter questions in the Q&A tab. And if you want to introduce yourself or just chat, network, whatever, you can also enter your text in the chat tab. Our next presentation is called Effective Use of Data Analytics and Its Impact on Business Performance Within Small to Medium-Sized Businesses. It's nice to have a placard that shows what the title is. And our speaker is Alfonso Berumen, who's a faculty and doctoral candidate, owner and data scientist at Pepperdine University, and in the Department of Data Analytics. And so without further ado, here's Alfonso.
All right. So hopefully you can hear me well. So welcome to DataCon LA. I'm Alfonso Berumen. As mentioned, I'll be presenting on my recently completed research on the effective use of data analytics and its impact on performance within small and medium-sized business. So it's actually no longer a doctoral candidate. This research actually got me over the line. So first, I just want to share a little bit about my background. I actually came from industry, and I'm a serial consultant. I spent over 10 years at a small to mid-sized firm, and then left to start the doctoral program at Pepperdine as part of the first guinea pig cohort. While at the firm, I completed an MBA and MS in predictive analytics. Also during that time, I delved into teaching at USA Extension with courses in the data science certificate program. So having completed the degree at Pepperdine, I'm now a full-time instructor in the MS in Business Analytics, MBA, and other master's programs that are offered at the business school. Also, I offer consulting services as part of, or sort of a one-person shop under Los Angeles Data Analytics. But I basically started this journey or dip into academia because I was looking for a change, and it was always something that I thought about, but was finally in a place in my career. So finally, if you want to tweet or share about the presentation or tag me during or after. My social media is there as well. It's just LA Data Analytics on Twitter and also Instagram, and my LinkedIn is there as well. So I'd like to start by introducing a general business concept referred to as data-driven decision-making, also referred to as evidence-based management or evidence-based decision-making. The idea is that as business practitioners, when we make important decisions within business, we may lean on database analytics as opposed to intuition or guessing, which can then impact a number of important parties in business processes. So in fact, research published in the Harvard Business Review revealed that publicly traded companies have been able to achieve 5% higher productivity and 6% higher profitability when employing data-driven decision-making. And many of you have probably seen the benefits of this in your organization in different areas, but now you can sort of put the practice to the name. So turning now to another important aspect of the research that I've done is a focus on smaller companies, or those that are traditionally defined as having less than 500 employees. So in fact, of firms in the US, over 99% fall into this category. Additionally, they comprise over 47% of total employment. So in terms of economic impact, they account for approximately 44% of economic activity. So why is this important? Well, it turns out that despite information and analytics can impact performance, there's actually limited insights on how firms might build out and manage their business analytics strategy. Additionally, there have been limited studies on how effective use of data analytics can be leveraged in an SMB setting. So finally, there's been sort of a recent calling for more generalizable, and I would say more management advice type of research. So coming from a background with training and machine learning and predictive analytics, I was initially inclined when I first thought about what to study or where to go was to hopefully find an interesting business application and corresponding data sets to apply a predictive modeling technique to, with the objective of finding important variables that might impact business performance. So in other words, convince a company to give me their unique internal data and provide insights around that that they haven't studied to hopefully impact strategy and publish around that. However, that would have been the easy route for me. So it turns out in information systems research around data analytics, that's actually a common approach. While that's absolutely important, what is really lacking is some evidence around the right management practices to eventually facilitate such an analysis that might be performed in an organization by data scientists, analysts, et cetera, and then feed into strategy choices. So in other words, what more general advice would you give to organizations who want to leverage analytics? So in terms of the research model, and I'll get to the survey that I had done that is based on this, but the model itself is actually based on what's called the resource-based view, or RBV. And so we can think of a resource as a basic unit of analysis or granular. And when these basic units are bundled, can actually lead to a capability. So previous research indicates that resources can be divided into tangible resources, human skills, and intangible resources. And so other researchers were actually able to show that there's a relationship between this capability that is formed from these resources and firm performance. And the idea is that if you can develop these into an IT or IS capability, such as data analytics, you're essentially becoming more competitive and may extract business performance gains. So now translating this into data analytics specific capabilities, and was foundational for this study. You can categorize these resources as tangible, as including data, technology, and basic resources. Human resources as including technical skills and human skills, and managerial skills, and intangible resources as including data-driven culture and organizational learning. So several research studies have been done using the same conceptualizations around big data analytics, and there's an overall consensus that basically these are the key resources to develop an analytics capability. And so to translate this further, what this suggests is that mere adoption alone of, say, collecting data, buying software, hiring people with technical skills is really not enough. And so this research model was operationalized as what would be called a third-order model or hierarchical model, with the more granular resources that I covered leading to the key IT resource categories that then form a data analytics capability. So all of these are constructs or what you would call latent variables, right? So for example, to study customer satisfaction in the context of a hotel business, one might ask a series of survey questions to try to capture satisfaction, as it cannot be directly observed per se. So to obtain information around these constructs that lead to a capability, actually test if this capability has a relationship with performance in an SMB setting, survey questions need to be asked that capture or measure these different constructs. And so I'll share a sample of some of the questions that were asked or posed to SMB owners and representatives. So I actually use sort of a proxy for performance, referred to as business value. And so business value is actually measured using perceptual performance measures and captured through 5 different process areas where value can be realized by a firm, including supplier relations, production operations, product and service enhancement, marketing and sales, and customer relations. So while perceptual measures have been criticized in the past because they're not necessarily tangible measures or objective measures, has been shown empirically that has been published in prominent journals, or research that's published in prominent journals, that they are accurate, credible, and unbiased measures of the impact of IT. And again, from a business perspective, ultimately, if we're going to invest in resources as an organization or acquire them, we want to see that they have a positive impact from a performance perspective, right? So this is my dependent variable, business value. So you can see the full model here and the relationships, and you can see that essentially data analytics capability is my main independent variable, and business value is my main dependent variable. So additionally, another group of management practices that have become popular from an application perspective within business, but also of interest by academics, is referred to as information or data governance. And so while nascent information governance has been studied and reported to influence business value, or more specifically enhance the presence of a data analytics capability. So information or IG consists of structural practices or user involvement in policy setting and evaluation, identifying responsible parties for data ownership, analysis of data value, and cost management. Whereas relational practices or educating users and non-IT managers on storage and cost, and maintaining flow of communication across executives, IT, and data users. So that would comprise the second one there. And then finally, procedural practices or organizational activities around the actual enactment of data policies and data governance practices. So finally, previous research has shown or suggests that IG may act as a moderator between DAC or data capability and business value, or alternatively, that the presence of data governance enhances the value that can be extracted. So you have now the following main research questions here. So one, does data analytics create value for SMBs? Hypothesis there is that it does. Research question 2, what is the importance of resources and organizational capabilities that contribute to the development of a data analytics capability within SMB firms? And here the hypothesis is that tangible human and intangible resources are actually equally important. The third, what is the effect of data analytics capability on realization of business value within SMBs? And that third hypothesis there is that it positively affects data analytics business value as measured by perceived value in business process areas. And then finally, what's the role of information governance in realizing data analytics business value from DAC? And the hypothesis there is that information governance positively moderates the relationship between DAC and DABV. So in terms of the study population and sampling, a contact list of approximately, let me just check my time here. Contact list of approximately 6,720 individuals was obtained through the private capital markets project. So that's actually an existing project at Pepperdine, which focuses on collecting detailed information annually on cost of private capital and investment expectations of privately held business owners. So through random selection from that main list using R for the data collection for the web-based survey, which was administered through Qualtrics, I obtained 28 responses during the pilot or pre-test phase. And then after analyzing the psychometric properties, reviewing open responses, and also conducting 4 30-minute interviews where I went question by question on revisiting the literature, we actually made adjustments to the questions accordingly, excluding several items that were redundant, but more importantly, adding a section to better understand the big data maturity levels. So more importantly, it was revealed that SMB respondents have varying levels of understanding and use of big data. So the survey was actually rewarded to focus on data analytics and then tease out big data use separately. So you probably noticed that there was a slight study title adjustment, and this was in fact driven by that. So in other words, I ultimately focused on data analytics generally, but then tried to tease out big data frequency of use or reliance on big data for analysis to see if that in fact had an impact on business performance as a separate independent variable. So all the constructs and questions around the resources and management practices necessary to form this capability were framed around data analytics, but then separate questions were asked around reliance of big data as a source. And so while the initial list had about 6,720 contacts based on bounce backs, it's estimated that about only 5,600 were valid. But in any case, for the final survey, 332 respondents completed at least 50% of the survey. 309 were usable. And after limiting to SMBs, the final sample contained 300 responses. So that bizarre and nice number of 300 happened by chance. However, considering the suggested sample size based on the research model, it's much larger than the minimum requirement. So additionally, I did 5 short interviews via Zoom to provide sort of vignettes or context around the survey results, specifically around the capability, constructs, and business value. So then moving on to data collection in terms of the survey sample, different demographic factors were also collected. And comparing to recent firm counts from the US Census Bureau, there's actually a larger representation of what you would call non-micro firms in this sample at 56.7% compared to 21.2% in the US. Although there's no hard cutoff, the general suggestion would be companies of greater than or equal to 10. And then in terms of industry, professional, scientific, and technical service was highest at 26.7%, followed by manufacturing at 13.7%. And again, in comparing these proportions to US Census firm counts, firms less than 500 employees, there were some differences in characteristics. Finally, in terms of ownership status, 75% of the respondents were actually control owners, which is quite unique. And just of note, several of these factors we used to test, or some of the factors presented here were used to test for differences across groups in the analysis, which will not be discussed in detail today. And yet also shown here is a map of the location of respondents based on the Qualtrics IP address, courtesy of some packages in R. Shown on the map, responses actually came from across the United States. Okay, and then all of the survey constructs to sort of capture these latent variables associated with data analytics capability were measured on a 7-point Likert scale, measuring agreement level. These were all based on prior studies in which language was adjusted to capture data analytics in my study as opposed to big data analytics. So for example, for data, one statement item, item statement is, as a business, we combine external data with internal data. Similarly, for human resources, as an example for technical skills, statement there is our data analytics staff currently have the right skills to accomplish their jobs successfully. Also for intangible resources with data-driven culture, a statement there is, as a business, we base our decisions on data analytics rather than on gut or instinct. So now translating this to what's referred to as the measurement model, or basically how these constructs were measured from the survey items or indicators. You can see that the survey items either reflect or form each construct. As such, the questions were worded, and then you can see the directional arrows that capture this either formative or reflective relationship. But more importantly, you can see that the tangible, intangible, and human resources second-order constructs from these more granular resources described, they actually form this data analytics capability as previously discussed. So moving on to the dependent variable construct, shown here is a sample of the survey items around business value. These were actually measured on a 1 to 7 scale, where 1 indicates low value realized and 7 indicates high value realized from data analytics. So here you can actually see the final, what's referred to as a structural model, or where this key relationship between DAC and business value can actually be tested. So you can see here the DAC, the independent variable, is formed by tangible, human, and intangible resources, and business value, my dependent variable, is reflected through these 5 value process areas. Additionally, it was noted I would test the monitoring role of information governance. So shown here are the items associated with each in which the scale was Likert 1 to 7. Finally, as mentioned, I captured frequency of use of data types to try to tease out practices by those firms that may be more big data mature than others. So as shown here and highlighted in blue are the 6 types that were considered big on the basis that they are unstructured or not easy to perform automated analysis on. So also captured was frequency of use of software tools, in which all 5 categories were included to form a software score. So collectively, I felt capturing the sophistication of data types, or big, which were shown on the previous page, and adoption of software use would be good measures to help understand collectively the impact of big data analytics maturity on business value. Of course, in addition to this data analytics independent variable, these were separate independent variables, the software score and also the big data score. So now moving on to the statistical analysis, what was employed in the setting to test the relationships was partial least squares structural equation modeling, or PLS-SEM. And so the following objectives shown in the slide apply to this model, which made PLS-SEM suitable, but additionally it's preferred if the objective is theory development and explanation of variance or prediction of constructs. And in fact, it uses proxies to represent the constructs of interest, and those are just weighted composites of the indicator variables for a particular construct. And what's nice about this is it allows for interpretation of importance in shaping that construct. And then ordinary least squares regression is then applied to the proxies with the goal of minimizing the error terms. So as with traditional regression, it produces coefficients or betas that explain the relationship between the independent and dependent variables, as well as an R-squared. So because I probably have a mixed audience in this presentation, I wanted to bring up the technical side of analyzing survey data and applying PLS-SEM. So Qualtrics, the survey platform that I use, produces several file options, including SPSS, Excel, and in fact, I use the SPSS file because it maintains the variable labels, including scale descriptions, right? So I had Likert and agreement levels, so I had the 1 to 7, but then I also have the text description there stored as well. And so you can keep that intact using a package in R when importing SPSS data. And so I actually used R to process the data, produce preliminary stats on my pilot sample, including conducting factor analysis and filtering the clean and final survey data. But when it came to the PLS-SEM modeling, I used the paid software Smart PLS. And the reason being is that there was much more documentation, examples online in books, even scholarly articles that walk through application of this somewhat emerging modeling technique. And really in the last 10 to 20 years, it's increased in popularity. So it seemed like the safest approach over trying to use an open source package. In addition, it automatically produces the different psychometric checks and criteria to check, including the reliability and validity, for example. And of course, we've seen a lot of software adapt. And so you can actually export Smart PLS output into R to produce model summaries or reproduce the model summaries. Additionally, I'm aware of at least one package called SEMR that allows you to import Smart PLS projects into R. But finally, a last motivation is my external reviewer and academic from Loyola, Maryland, Dr. Paul Talon, who had built off my advisor's work on these business value perceptual measures, Dr. John Mooney at Pepperdine. Paul had actually sort of developed this idea of data governance as well. But Paul had worked in Smart PLS in the past, so I actually relied on him quite a bit as a technical resource while I was doing the analysis. So shown here are the model results. So after the latent variable scores were constructed in stages to form this, check my time again, data escapability variable, and that was done for several other variables as well. The final inner structural model could be evaluated. So the path coefficient here is a positive 0.672, which can be interpreted as a standardized beta in regression analysis. So in other words, for every 1 unit increase in the standard deviation of data escapability, business value increases by 0.672 standard deviations. Additionally, this relationship is statistically significant. So the R-squared corresponds to the variance in business value explained by DAC, which in this case is 45.1%. So on the left side is the outer weights or relative importance associated with each of the resource constructs, which are evaluated for formative. And as such, both tangible and intangible resources have a fairly equal relative contribution to DAC, as when the relative importance is compared, the ratio of intangible, the construct with the highest relative importance to tangibles is approximately 1.15, while human skills relative contribution is weak and not significant, as the ratio of intangible to human skills is approximately 4.59. So however, the outer loading, or basically the absolute importance, is over 0.8, which is also something you would want to look at with these PLS SEM models. So you would actually describe this as that human skills is actually still absolutely important, or a good construct as it relates to the formation of DAC along with the tangible and intangible resources. And then from a practical perspective, these results suggest that SMB owners who are interested in elevating their DAC should consider developing intangible resources and tangible resources, or consider investment in such resources. And then on the right side, in evaluating the outer loadings, which are for reflective, related to business value, all 5 value areas demonstrated high loadings and are statistically significant, suggesting all are strong constructs for measuring business value. And so while insights emerged from the weights associated with resource constructs, an additional analysis was performed using the base model to further assess the results for insights into managerial implications. So importance performance matrix analysis, or Ipma, is actually used in evaluation of performance of key business success drivers when applying PLS SEM. So Ipma is basically an XY plot where the x-axis shows the importance or total effect of business success drivers using a scale of 0 to 1. And then the y-axis shows the performance of business success drivers using a scale of 0 to 100. So the plot can then be divided into quadrants using the average importance and performance values. And so from there, a sequence of prioritization emerges. So with the intention of influencing or enhancing business value from data analytics, the management priority should be first given to the development of tangible resources, followed by intangible resources, then human skills as a third priority. And so for the next test here, I tested information governance as a moderator. And when incorporating information governance as moderator, the interaction term actually shows a statistically significant and positive effect. So in other words, the higher level of information governance practices present, the stronger the relationship between DAC and business value. So that is that information governance strengthens the relationship between DAC and business value. So this is also shown by the increase in the R squared with its inclusion as well. And it's also recommended to produce a slope plot to better understand the statistically significant interaction term. And so then based on this interaction plot, the line labeled high IG or high information governance has a higher, steeper slope when compared to low IG or low information governance, suggesting that the positive relationship between data analytics capability and business value is stronger when information governance is high. Also, as discussed, I also sought to test the controls around big data types and software use. And so when incorporating big data and software use, the variables explained 54.4% of the variance in business value. Additionally, all had a positive effect on business value, with data analytics capability having the largest impact, followed by software tools and big data. So additionally, multi-collinearity was checked for exogenous constructs or independent variables, and was not an issue. So what this actually suggests, it actually suggests that stronger reliance on an adoption of more advanced software tools and big data as a source, or big data types, actually has a positive impact on business value, and their inclusion as a complement to data analytics capability helps explain a larger proportion of variance in business value. Okay, so moving on to these short vignettes really quickly here, I actually did 5 short interviews after the survey, and these included respondents from a marketing consulting firm, an aerospace and an energy technology and software firm, media and communications firm, a retail firm, and a casualty claim recovery firm. So with respect to tangible resources, all 5 exhibited a high level of reliance on data and technology. Software use varied and ranged from reliance on enterprise software applications to more advanced programming tools, and then also based on insights obtained from the interviews, decisions around software options for SMBs that were interviewed. The selection of software seems to be a pressure point in terms of costs, and actually may require some additional consideration for SMB business owners. With respect to hiring, several respondents know they look for those candidates that have domain knowledge or previous experience in a similar role. Several have more staff that are more technical, with the largest firm having several teams that focus specifically on data management, data infrastructure, and data analysis. Also important for all 5 was that managers or decision makers must possess managerial skills that allow them to recognize the application of and translate outputs of data analysis to strategy to realize business value. Finally, with respect to intangible resources, every organization and its management understood the importance of relying on data or possessing a data-driven culture. And also several hinted at the need to stay in tune with changes in software and technologies that can help improve processes, suggesting organizational learning is important. So all of these 5 were actually purposely selected because they had high levels of data analytics capability and were able to extract business value from DAC. So the summary here for the hypotheses. So the first one here that was actually supported as demonstrated by the analysis of the survey data. So data analytics creates business value within SMBs through positive performance impacts on key business process areas. And those were the perceptual business value measures there. Hypothesis 2 for tangible, human, and intangible being equally important. That was not supported, and that was demonstrated by the statistical analysis of the survey data. And so the analysis actually suggests, and we were looking at the relative importance earlier, that they are all absolutely important. So tangible, human, and intangible are all absolutely important for forming this capability. However, intangible and tangible resources are of higher relative importance. The third one here, DAC positively affects business value is measured by these perceived value in these business process areas. This was actually supported, again, as demonstrated by the statistical analysis of the survey data, more specifically based on the positive and significant effect of DAC on business value. Also, discoveries from the 5 vignette interviews provide additional support and context around the survey results. And then for information governance, was shown to positively moderate the relationship between data analytics capability and data analytics business value. So I'm almost done here. I'm just going to scale this background in the academia plugs for time purposes, but it's always advised in research to address these points. There are certainly limitations to this, particularly with respect to the sample and the data being self-reported. There also are different research directions one could go to follow up on this. However, you can read toward the end of my approximately 200-page dissertation document that should be available to the public any moment now on ProQuest. That was a joke, by the way, but I want to save some time for questions. So I'm going to jump directly to my implications for business practice and also business feel now that you've seen the findings. So in terms of implication for business practice for more specifically SMB owners, for US-based SMBs, more sophisticated data analytics capabilities lead to higher realization of data analytics business value. Another implication is that a firm requires more than just tangible resources and human resources, but also organizational and cultural practices to form a data analytics capability. Additionally, the results suggest that SMB owners should prioritize assembling intangible and tangible resources prior to developing human resources, such as hiring or developing internal analytics staff. More importantly, if the objective is to enhance business value, one should first focus on tangible resources as they have the highest potential to impact business value. Of second importance in impacting business value are intangible resources, and then third is human resources. Also, more attention to data governance may be important. Additionally, the qualitative research revealed that SMBs may actually decide to acquire external or internal resources. However, more extensive decision analysis should be performed on the front end to evaluate the cost and benefits or potential value expected to be realized in firm process areas, especially given how resource-constrained SMBs are when compared to larger firms. More importantly, an SMB owner or manager may assess their capability levels using this survey instrument that was employed in this research. So as previous academic authors have suggested, this instrument may actually be used to evaluate the caliber of a firm's data analytics resources and capability and identify potential areas that need to be developed further. So that's sort of my next project that's ongoing to try to put something like this together where SMB owners can actually evaluate their levels of capability. So just some final points here. Let me actually just about there. So I feel a need to translate this, especially given that I am an analytics professional myself. So to sort of summarize all this, firms that are low in human resources, such as technical or managerial talent, specific to data analytics capability, or specific to data analytics, can still realize business value from data. My next point here is that adoption of data and technology, such as hardware and software, and allocation of time and money to projects should be complemented with the appropriate organizational practices, including data-driven culture and eagerness to learn and adapt if the intent is to produce value. Also, a viable option for SMBs is to consider software with analytical capabilities embedded in it. And with the sophistication of software increasing and cloud-based solutions available, out-of-the-box solutions with the right capabilities may facilitate effective use of data for decision-making. So then lastly, an additional viable option is to hire a consultant who has expertise in both data analytics and the value areas that the firm seeks to target. In fact, one of the individuals that I interviewed had done that in retail. And then also information or data governance is an emerging practice, but that may enhance the value realized from data analytics, and from a practical perspective makes sense, right? And then finally, adoption and frequency of use of the popular big data and more advanced software tools can further enhance value. However, this may not be a necessity for everyone. So that's all I have. Thanks for listening, and sorry for that rush to the end, but I think we have just about 5 minutes for questions. Yes.
Yeah, attendees, feel free to put your questions in Q&A section. I can see one question. How did you create a proxy for the business value?
Yeah, so they were perceptual measures, and so respondents were asked to indicate on a 1 to 7 scale, 1 indicating low value realized and 7 high value realized. And so each of the process areas, those 5 process areas, there was a series of questions around each of those 5 process areas where a respondent would indicate, whether or not they were seeing low value realized from data analytics or high value realized from data analytics. So that's actually how the processes will capture those perceptual perceptual responses.
Cool. Is there any other question? Okay, we are actually, then we can conclude the session. Thank you, Alfonso, for your presentation, and thank you to the attendees for the questions. You can contact the speaker directly if there is any further questions regarding this topic. Please provide your feedback. The feedback form link, I'll post it in the chat window. Thank you again, everyone, for joining today's presentation, and I hope you gained some insights from this session. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and thank you once again for being a part of this year's DataCon LA. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Alfonso.
How's it going?
I got locked out of the session. So I actually did have there was a maximum number of people who can moderate the session. And for whatever reason, this was set at 3. Normally they're set at 5. So with the screen share, it was actually set at 2. But I actually had a question. Actually, I've got 3 minutes. But you mentioned capability and maturity several times, and having been through the wars, the capability maturity model, the security maturity model, the data maturity model. Is this something you had in mind? Maybe something along the lines of a performance maturity model? Because a lot of what you're talking about, processes, and also the if you were to try to extract out and abstract out some of what you're saying, a lot of it seems to be applicable in that regard.
Yeah, so I don't know if are you referring to a specific model, but
like the capability maturity model was the first one I became familiar with, setting aside 5 different levels and what organizations would need to do to have such and such a level of software reproducibility and capability redevelopment.
Yeah, I mean, so certainly, this is based on a resource-based view, right? But certainly, I would say that it's a similar idea, right? Is that you can think of the maturity as the amount of resources that you've acquired around specifically data analytics.
I'm sorry, I'm being paged. I'm sorry. I will get in touch with you.
Yeah, definitely would like to talk further, and then maybe see specifically some of the literature that you're referring to, or some of the concepts you're referring to, because I think there is a crossover.
It sounds very much, and that's the first thing that came to mind, because I've been through all of this, but in obviously different contexts. But I really have to go because I have 4:45 start.
Okay.
Thanks. Right. Thank you.
All right. See you.
Bye-bye.
Okay. For those that are still stuck in here, feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn, or happy to connect and answer any further questions, or talk about anything else outside of what was presented here.